Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Two tails, one head, yin yang. That has never happened to me. Two tails, one head. Yin yang. 3 heads, old yang. Our bottom trigram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is the trigram. Dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others, and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. The top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, solid, solid. This is Qian heaven. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Qian heaven above dewy lake or marsh gives us the hexagram. Ten. Once our sixth line transforms from old yang to young yin, it will give us a top or outer trigram for our supporting hexagram of solid, solid, broken. This is the hexagram dewy lake or marsh, right? That's what we just got. Yeah, so supporting hexagram, dewy lake or marsh above dewy lake or marsh is hexagram 58. We'll be getting the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept, and it's quite alchemical. For those of y'all that like alchemical-y stuff. Our primary hexagram 10, I-ming calls treading, progress, advance of the positive, prevention of danger by caution, empowerment by calmness and trust. And supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 58 is joy, communion of the inward and the outward, joy in practicing the Tao. We'll start by reading from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary, but also quite profound. Hexagram 10, Treading. Key questions. Where is the tiger? Do you know how to work with such power? When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Vicious looking. Oracle. Treading a tiger's tail, it does not bite people, creating success. There are tigers in the outer world and also inner tigers. As you get close, it's good to recognize the tiger for what it is. Treading the tiger's tail is perilous. Yet, if you can move in harmony with it, you can invite its power into your own life as protection, fertility, and blessing. To do this without getting bitten requires both skill and care. Look to the power and intensity you are drawn to in the situation. Its specific danger is there, and also its potential gift. Image. Heaven above, lake below, treading. A noble one differentiates above and below, and makes a place for the people's aspiration. The depths of the sky are reflected in the lake as it dances below heaven. An awareness of other dimensions of reality enters inner dialogue, and this becomes aspiration. It's as natural for people to aspire as it is for the lake to reflect. By marking out the difference between above and below, a noble one shows there is a direction to travel and a distance to cross. This means differentiating the ideal you aspire to from your step-by-step progress as you follow it. Sequence. Treading follows from Hexagram 9, Small Taming. Things are tamed, and then there are the rituals, and so treading follows. First, you learn the rules for working with great power, inwardly or outwardly, and then you can move with it more freely and harmoniously. In our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 58, Opening. Key questions. How can you fully enjoy the moment? What are you bringing to expression? What if you communicated and exchanged more freely? Oracle. Opening. Creating success. Constancy bears fruit. The early Chinese character for opening shows someone with words rising from their mouth. They seem to be dancing and singing. It means joyful and outgoing expression that opens up communication. Opening brings people together and begins a lively creative process of sharing and exchange. It liberates human energies, motivates people to overcome hardship, and encourages perseverance. Image. Lakes join together, opening. A noble one joins with friends to speak and practice together. Two joined lakes open to one another, flow together freely, and enrich one another. The same is true of friends who join together to discuss and share their understanding. The exchange of ideas and pooling of insights makes everyone richer. Sequence. Opening follows from Hexagram 57, Subtly Penetrating. Entering in and then rejoicing, and so opening follows. You subtly penetrate things and know them from the inside. Then you bring things out and express them with joy, taking delight in the freedom to interact and connect. We'll next look at our changing line 6, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. It is the most focused part of the reading and takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 6 has the general context beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 6 of Hexagrams 10, treading. Observing the footsteps, blessings from the ancestors. They come full circle, good fortune from the source. Looking back over the tiger's path through your life, or perhaps it is your own path, is like a form of divination, reading the footprints left by visiting animals. By looking at this track record, you open up to a larger communication where you can perceive and shape where you can perceive the shape and meaning of what has gone before. I'm going to read that sentence again. My apologies. By looking at this track record, you open up to a larger communication where you can perceive the shape and meaning of what has gone before. When you can see the footprints coming full circle, a completed pattern, and also the image of an endless cycle of communication, then their presence becomes a blessing. Next, we'll read from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Tell me when you're sick of hearing that. It's very alchemical in nature. I'm not sick of it, you're sick of it. But I'm still gonna do it. For consistency. 10, treading. Even when they tread on a tiger's tail, it doesn't bite people. This is developmental. Explanation. Treading means forward progress. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is heaven, strong, and below is lake, joyous. Yin is rejoicing in yang. With the advance of one yin, the hexagram will change into pure yang. Representing this, it is therefore called treading. This hexagram symbolizes progression of yang and the prevention of danger. It follows on the preceding hexagram, accord. In accord, yin follows yang, but if you want yin to follow, it is necessary first to advance yang. When the progression of yang reaches proper balance, yin naturally follows it. This is the appropriate priority of the path of advancing yang. The true yang in people is inherent and need not be sought from another. When it mixes with acquired conditioning, true feeling is obscured and arbitrary feelings arise. Then true yang runs away outside. This is likened to a tiger running off and staying elsewhere as a member of another house. Though it is in another house, originally the tiger is one's own. It is just that people are not willing to call it back. The way of calling it back is not sought in heaven, or earth, or fire, or water, but only in lake. Lake as the youngest daughter. In the so-called temporal arrangement of the trigrams are associated with members of a family. Heaven is father, earth is mother, thunder is eldest son, wind is eldest daughter, water is middle son, fire is middle daughter, mountain is youngest son, and lake is youngest daughter. Lake, as the youngest daughter, travels the path of receptive submission in place of Mother Earth and is able to revert to yang by the culmination of yin. Its nature is harmonious and joyful. Being harmonious, it can relax. Being joyous, it can trust. Being relaxed, it can go gradually. Trusting, it can endure long. Able to relax and trust, powerful practice unrelenting. It is thereby possible to advance to the stage of indestructible firmness and strength, to again see the original face of heaven, and not be injured by false yin and false yang. This is likened to treading on a tiger's tail without its biting people, and having a way of development and growth. A tiger is something that bites people. It is most dangerous to tread on it. If one can tread with harmony and joyfulness, without excessive ferocity, it is like treading on a tiger's tail. If one is careful, as if treading on a tiger's tail, looking ahead and behind, striking a balance without obsession or indifference, proceeding gradually in an orderly manner, forestalling danger, aware of perils, carrying out the firing process without error, then the yin can be transmuted into yang, and the yang can be restored to purity. Not only is one not bitten by the tiger, one can even take over the living energy in its killing and preserve life and being whole. This path of development and achievement without obstruction or hindrance through advancement of yang, treading strongly with harmony and joy, is of great benefit. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 58, joy. It's interesting because I said travel, and 56 is travel. I flipped right to it right when I was saying it. Maybe you're traveling. Joy. Joy is developmental, beneficial if correct. Explanation. Joy is delight. In the body of the hexagram, 2 yangs are below, 1 yin is above. Empty without, fulfilled within. It is represented as a body of water, and its quality is joy. As water provides moisture for myriad beings, joy develops myriad beings. Joyful within and without, reaching the outer from within, communicating with the inner from without, inside and outside are conjoined, without separation between them. Therefore, it is called joy. This hexagram represents joy in practicing the Tao. It follows on the preceding hexagram, travel. Travel involves applying understanding with stability so that understanding is not misused. Having one's will on the Tao so that no external things can move it. Having one's will on the Tao is finding joy in the Tao. When one delights in the Tao, then one can practice the Tao. This is why joy is developmental. However, though joy is developmental on the path, it is only beneficial if correct. When it is correct, it is beneficial, and one consummates one's joy. If incorrect, it is not beneficial, and one loses one's joy. As in the image of the hexagram with joy above and below, the 6 lines are parallel. The lower joy is inward joy, the upper joy is outer joy. When inward joy is fulfilled, outer joy is also fulfilled. And when inward joy is empty, outer joy is also empty. Fulfillment here means reality of joy. Emptiness means falsehood of joy. Reality means joy endures. Falsehood means joy does not last long. Herein lies the benefit of correctness. People who practice the Tao really correctly do not delight in objects of the senses, in wealth and gain. They delight in benevolence, justice, and the qualities of the Tao. So naturally they have real joy and do not strive for artificial joy. Thus every step proceeds from the work they apply to the essence and life of body and mind. Joyful in the beginning, they can naturally complete the end. So joy always develops, and the development is always beneficial. We will now look at our changing line 6 of hexagram 10 treading, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. Takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 6 has the general context, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. 10, treading, changing line 6. Observing the treading, considering what is felicitous, the return is auspicious. Explanation. Here, yang is in the position of flexibility, observing the firing process trodden, considering the balance of gravity and energy in the medicinal substances, proceeding in an orderly manner, completing the cycle from start to finish. Completing the beginning by the end, one aims to reach the merging of yin and yang in complete original wholeness. This is treading the path, consummating the beginning, and completing the end. So the path of advancing yang requires flexibility within firmness and firmness within flexibility. It is important that firmness and flexibility balance each other, and one neither rushes nor lags, but is harmonious, joyous, equanimous, and serene. We'll also look at the commentary section in Liu Yiming's Taoist I Ching, which is a little bit more alchemical sometimes. Treading, heaven above, lake below, above is the sky, below is the lake. Treading, thus do superior people distinguish above and below, and settle the will of the people. Treading means progressive ascent, above is heaven, below is lake. The sky covers the lake looks up to the sky. So above and below have fixed positions which cannot be mixed up. This is the image of treading. What superior people see in this is that the metaphysical is called the Tao and the physical is called the vessel. There is a distinction between the greater and lesser, a difference between the noble and the base. The higher is not to be considered lower and the lower is not to be considered higher. The greater is not to be considered lesser. The lesser is not to be considered greater. The noble is not to be considered base. The base is not to be considered noble. This is whereby to distinguish above and below and settle the will of the people, not allowing transgression through false ideas. The celestial is the ruler. This is higher, above. The earthly is the citizenry. This is lower, below. When one can distinguish the higher and lower, then right and wrong, sanity and aberration are clear, not doing anything inappropriate, sustaining the celestial and controlling the earthly, cultivating the real and dissolving the false, thoughts not arising inwardly, external things not entering the mind. Myriad things are all empty of absoluteness, and all mundane feelings involved with objects are settled. In the body of the hexagram, lake is the mundane, representing arbitrary feelings. Heaven is the celestial, representing true sense. When the mundane treads under the celestial and the celestial treads on top of the mundane, then arbitrary feelings do not arise and true sense is always present. True sense is unemotional sense. Using unemotional sense to control feelings is like a cat catching a mouse, like boiling water being poured on snow. In a short time, calamity turns to fortune. The will of the people is settled, and there is nothing to thwart the Tao. Then one gradually puts into practice the pure, unadulterated vitality of firm strength and proper balance. But settling the will of the people is all a matter of being able to distinguish the higher and the lower. The stability attained will be in proportion to the degree to which this distinction is successfully made. If there is any lack of clarity in this distinction, there will be that much instability. Therefore, the sage's science of fulfillment of nature and comprehension of life requires thorough investigation of principle as the first step. And our supporting hexagram 58, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Joy, lake above, lake below. Joined lakes are joyful. Thus do superior people explain and practice with companions. Joy means the joy of harmony. Above and below is lake. This is two lakes joined together, providing each other with water. This is the image of joy. What superior people see in this is that the Tao of nature and life is most profound, and the slightest slip causes a tremendous loss. So they expound and practice it with companions. Companions are people of like mind on the same path. Principles are not clear without explanation. Explanation is not thorough without practice. Companions explain to each other and practice what is explained by each other. discussing back and forth, pursuing their investigation into the Tao in the process of this interaction, entering deeply into it and advancing far on it, finally reaching attainment. The reason for this is that the knowledge of one person is limited, whereas the views of many people are endless. When there is something one does not know oneself, one needs companions to explain and clarify it. By this mutual explanation and practice, those who do not know will come to know, and those without mastery will gain it. Inwardly understanding and outwardly acting in accord with that understanding, there is no doubt that one will reach the stage of profound attainment of self-realization. Forgot to kiss the book. Not that that has to happen every time, but in this case, I feel it is called for. We will also look at our hexagrams and changing line in James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which is a synthesis of several I Ching commentaries, some of the main ones, well, main, I suppose, but main English translations, that is. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he has also left helpful editor's notes and quotes from things like the Kabbalah, C.G. Jung, throughout. 10 he calls cautious advance. Other titles might be treading, conduct, the symbol of stepping carefully, proper conduct, cautious treading, proceeding cautiously, watch your step, proceed at your own risk, advancing with care. A quote from D.F. Hook illustrates the difference between courage and foolhardiness. Judgment, leg. Cautious advance suggests the idea of one treading on the tail of a tiger, which does not bite him. There will be progress and success. Wilhelm/Baines, treading upon the tail of the tiger, it does not bite the man. Success. For the weak to take a stand against the strong is not dangerous here, because it happens in good humor and without presumption, so that the strong man is not irritated but takes it all in good part. Such simplicity and unpretentiousness is faith derived from reality, neither from love of happiness nor fear of unhappiness, but free of fear and hope. The concern here is with the art of action by means of proper conduct, and presupposes being childlike in its highest sense. Blofeld, though he travels upon the tiger's tail, it does not bite him. Success. The general idea of this hexagram is that success can be won, but that the situation is dangerous enough to require extreme caution. The tiger may not bite, but on the other hand, as lines 3 and 5 demonstrate, we cannot be certain of this. To consort with rulers and people in high places may be most beneficial. But should we fail to please, they may make us regret our temerity. Lu, treading. Stepping on the tail of a tiger, but it does not bite one. Success. You should act only after you have planned carefully and then with resolution. Ritzema/Karcher, treading a tiger tail, not snapping at people, growing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of finding and making your way. It emphasizes that doing this step by step is the adequate way to handle it. The image, leg. The image of the sky above and below, and below it, the waters of a marsh, form cautious advance. The superior man, in accordance with this, discriminates between high and low and gives settlement to the aims of the people. Wilhelm/Baines, heaven above, the lake below, the image of treading. Thus the superior man discriminates between high and low, and thereby fortifies the thinking of the people. Thus the superior man creates in society the differences in rank that correspond with differences in natural endowment, and in this way fortifies the thinking of the people, who are reassured when these differences accord with nature. We see a universe moved from within, without external manipulation. Since the universe is also within the human being, internal universal order leads to order without, by the force of necessary differentiation. Cf. The Ideal Society in Plato's Republic. Blowful. This hexagram symbolizes a body of water lying open to the sky. The superior man consults both high and low and thereby steadies the people's will. I'm gonna stretch a little bit here, and because it's popping into my head, but it's almost as though the high and the low, the earthly and the celestial, it's like connecting. You might call it the upper world and the lower world, or the upper world and the middle world, but almost as if you're creating a bridge between the subconscious and the conscious. That's probably the better way to say it. And that they accord with one another, like integration, right? Or individuation. Ritsuma/Karcher, heaven above, marsh below, treading. A Chunsu uses differentiating above and below, or chief son or superior person. A Chunsu uses setting right the commoners, the purpose. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. In cautious advance, we have the symbol of weakness treading on that of strength. The lower trigram indicates pleasure and satisfaction and responds to the upper indicating strength. Hence it is said, he treads on the tail of a tiger. The fifth line is dynamic in the center and in his correct place. He occupies the God-given position and falls into no distress or failure. His action will be brilliant. Leg. Cautious advance is made up of the lower trigram of pleased satisfaction or naivete and the upper trigram of heaven or primal power. Being situated below the great symbol of strength, naivete is seen to be stepping on a tiger's tail. To emerge unscathed from such a danger depends entirely upon propriety and a strict observance of all the rules of correct behavior. On these, as so many stepping stones, one may tread safely amid scenes of disorder and peril. The symbol of weakness, according to Wang Shangzu, is the third line, which is urged on by the two lines below it to encounter the three strong lines above. Other commentators say that the whole lower trigram, partaking of the yin nature, is the symbol of weakness, and the entire upper trigram is symbolic of strength. The Chen Chung editors say that to get the full meaning, we must hold both views. Cheng Su says of the image, the sky above and a marsh lying below it is true in nature and reason, and so should be the rules of propriety on which men tread. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. A cautious advance in the face of potentially volatile conditions will lead to safety. The superior man orders his priorities realistically and gets a grip on himself. Cautious advance depicts the lower trigram of the joyful youngest daughter stepping on the heels of the upper trigram of heaven, the stern paterfamilias, Yahweh Sabaoth or Zeus with his thunderbolt. In her innocence, she doesn't realize the danger of her action. This is treading on the tail of the tiger, and the hexagram teaches us how to do this without being bitten. The original judgment suggests that superior powers realize the innocent intent of the action and may be inclined to be lenient. Quote from Goethe, never known how to say his name, "You should not resist fate, nor need you escape it. If you go to meet it, it will guide you pleasantly." The paterfamilias, Yahweh Sabaoth or Zeus with his thunderbolt. There was a weird dream I had. It's got it in my announcements playlist. We're being chased by Zeus or someone like that, digging down into the earth, and then ended up at the devil, and we got a book from him, and he had not cracked one of the codes in it, and it was our job to do that. Anyway, pretty interesting. Wilhelm's notes on the image illustrate the undemocratic truth that although all men are created equal in the eyes of God, every human being possesses clearly differentiated strengths, weaknesses, talents, and incapacities. In lectures on the I-ming, he says, the secret of proper conduct is in inequality. Uniformity alone cannot give rise to proper conduct. To be sure, uniformity might produce rule and regulation, or law and force, but tedious force and brutal law never led people to convictions that legitimately resulted in proper conduct. The term includes that which produces proper conduct and proper conduct achieved. Instead, as Confucius said, force produces only alienation, and people transgress secretly that which is public regulation. Cautious advance often images a test situation, or it can be a warning that you are walking on the edge of a precipice. The image of the Fool in the tarot deck has similar associations. Without changing lines, this hexagram implies a need for extreme caution, or that your actions are tempting fate. A quote from J. Blofeld in the Tantric Mysticism of Tibet. The passions, instead of having to be painfully exterminated, are yoked like snarling tigers to the adept's carriage. The dangers of such a course are obvious. As one of my Lama teachers put it, while you were traveling in that cart, a tumble would have done you little harm. Now I have given you an airplane. Don't crash in flames. Gotta love those Lama teachers. Next, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 58, James Dekorne calls joy or self-indulgence. Other titles might be the joyous, joyousness, pleased, satisfaction, encouraging, delight, open, usurpation, self-indulgence, pleasure, cheerfulness, frivolity, callow optimism, judgment, leg. Joy intimates that under its conditions there will be progress and attainment, but it will be advantageous to be firm and correct. Ritzma/Karcher, open, growing, harvesting trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of interaction and exchange. It emphasizes that stimulating things through cheering and persuasive speech, the action of open, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to stimulate. Cleary 1, joy is developmental, beneficial if correct. This hexagram represents joy in practicing the Tao. Having one's will on the Tao is finding joy in the Tao. When one delights in the Tao, then one can practice the Tao. This is why joy is developmental. The image, leg. Two images of the waters of a marsh, one over the other, form joy. The superior man, in accordance with this, encourages the conversation of friends and the stimulus of their common practice. Wilhelm/Baines, lakes resting one on the other, the image of the joyous. Thus, the superior man joins with his friends for discussion and practice. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes two bodies of water conjoined. The superior man joins his friends in discussions and in practicing the various arts and virtues. Lu, the beautiful lakes symbolize joyousness. The superior man joins his fellows for teaching and study. Cleary 1, joined lakes are joyful, thus do superior people explain and practice with companions. As water provides moisture for myriad beings, joy develops myriad beings. Joyful within and without, reaching the outer from within, communicating with the inner from without, inside and outside are conjoined without separation between them. Therefore it is called joy. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Joy has the meaning of pleased satisfaction. We have the dynamic lines in the center and the magnetic lines on the outer edge of the two trigrams, indicating that in pleasure, what is most advantageous is the maintenance of firm correctness. Through this, there will be found an accordance with the will of heaven and a correspondence with the feelings of men. When such pleasure goes before the people and leads them on, they forget their toils. When it animates them in encountering difficulties, they forget the risk of death. How great is the power of this pleased satisfaction, stimulating in such a way the people. Leg. The feeling of pleasure is the subject of this hexagram, which is made up of the doubled trigram of cheerfulness or pleased satisfaction. The progress and attainment of the figure are due to the one magnetic line surmounting each trigram and supported by the two dynamic lines. The idea is that of mildness, which is energized by a double portion of strength. The pleasure which leads the people to endure toil and risk death is the effect of the instructive example of their ruler. Fu Fan Hsien paraphrases this portion of the text as, when the sage with this precedes them, he can make them endure toil without any wish to decline it, and can go with him into difficulty and danger without their having any fear. You could almost, and sometimes I have looked at them this way. In fact, the more I use the I Ching, the more I look at it this way. You could almost look at them as like spells, in a sense. Not only telling you the situation of the times, but also giving you an understanding of the power inherent in the times that can be opened up and used and harnessed by the superior person or sage. So it's almost like all of time, there's magic in it, and the opportunities within are like little folds that if you can get under, you can gain access to the next room or just development in general as you develop on the path of the work. Anthony, this hexagram speaks on the one hand of that on which true joy depends, and on the other of joy as desire, which leads to conflict. The essence of true joy is inner stability. Being firmly devoted to our path, we do not waver. When we think of the soft and comfortable path, on the other hand, self-conflict begins. Therefore, getting this hexagram indicates that we may be wavering or irresolute. I will say also, Benabel Wen was talking about in one of her videos how each of the hexagrams, and I think even included the trigrams, have a power behind them, if you will, or a force or a spirit, an essence to them that you can start feeling out like an energy. And once you sense those all, it becomes easier to get a little bit more grip on what's happening with all of this stuff. I know it's a lot of information, but to saturate yourself in it eventually, I think, has a great effect. Judgment. A cheerful attitude serves the will. The superior man shares his thoughts and feelings, or, psychologically interpreted, observes, weighs, and integrates his thoughts with his feelings. The title of this hexagram denotes joyousness and pleasure, and most people regard it as a good omen when they receive it. Yet, an analysis of the lines indicates that only the first two are particularly favorable, and the hexagram itself seldom seems to refer to anything remotely resembling joy. In a typical oracle consultation, the lessons to be learned from the figure are the differences between self-indulgence and maintaining emotional stability in one's conduct of the work, which always demands a firm control over one's effects. To receive this hexagram without changing lines requires the querent's careful discrimination. It can mean simply, oh, happy day. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Ren and Stimpy, anybody? Or it can suggest that you examine an inclination toward lack of control in the situation at hand. The oracle is capable of brutal sarcasm when your query warrants it. So don't be too quick to accept the shallow meaning of joy. As often as not, self-indulgence is the more appropriate title. A quote from Lao Tzu, "In light frivolity, the center is lost. In hasty action, self-mastery is lost." The image depicts an open interchange among friends. Intrapsychically, this suggests the normal give and take between thoughts and feelings for the purpose of reaching integration. The symbol of two bodies of water conjoined from Blofeld might refer to the adjacent dimensions of thought and emotion within the psyche. When feelings are not in harmony with intellectual differentiation, a common phenomenon, give and take, discussion and practice, is essential to effect integration, i.e. harmony or joy. Practice suggests cycles of time and the notion that perfection is still to be achieved. Slofnesy's seemingly anomalous title of usurpation for this hexagram offers some subtle insights into the symbolism here. Emotions, feelings, affects are often portrayed as daemonic forces, so Daemonic, like a spirit, not necessarily evil, as daemonic forces which usurp ego consciousness and indulge themselves in the joy of expressing whatever they happen to represent in the psyche. This is often what is implied when receiving this hexagram. A quote from Jung in Psychology and Religion: "Each of us is equipped with a psychic disposition that limits our freedom in high degree and makes it practically illusory. Not only is freedom of the will an incalculable problem philosophically, it is also a misnomer in that practical sense, for we seldom find anybody who is not influenced and indeed dominated by desires, habits, impulses, prejudices, resentments, and by every conceivable kind of complex. All these natural facts function exactly like an Olympus full of deities who want to be propitiated, served, feared, and worshipped, not only by the individual owner of this assorted pantheon, but by everybody in his vicinity." Again, we've got Olympus popping up, and we had Zeus pop up in the other one. Cleary's Taoist commentary, as water provides moisture for myriad beings, etc., supports this interpretation. Water symbolizes the emotional realm, and the myriad beings dwelling therein are emotional entities, creatures like untamed animals, which are never happier than when running free. To them it's joy, to the executive function in the psyche it's self-indulgence. Usurpation has taken place. What's wrong with a little joy within and joy without? Come on, James. Gonna be a stick in the mud all the time. If you're watching, James, I don't really think that of you. Just so you know. I hope you do watch. That would be amazing. We'll go now to our changing line 6 of hexagram 10, treading, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 6 has the general context, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Whew. 10, cautious advance, as James Dekorne calls it, changing line 6. Leg. The sixth line dynamic tells us to look at the whole course that is trodden and examine the presage which that gives. If it be complete and without failure, there will be great good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines, look to your conduct and weigh the favorable signs. When everything is fulfilled, supreme good fortune comes. Blofeld, if they watch their step or look to their conduct and heed the omens, sublime good fortune will be theirs. Lou, observe your conduct and examine the signs carefully. There will be great good fortune. Ritzel/Karcher, observing treading, predecessor auspicious, one's recurring spring significant. Slofnesy, looking and treading crafty, and soaring its revolving, prime auspiciousness. Cleary too, observing the treading, considering what is felicitous, the return is auspicious. Woo, examination of the treading records gives a sense of completion. If errors in treading are avoided, there will be great fortune. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, this is a matter for congratulation. Wilhelm/Baines, the topmost place carries great blessing. Blofeld, the sublime good fortune presaged by this top line takes the form of immense felicity. Ritzema/Karcher, felicity isn't that immense, come on. Jeez, that was corny. Ritzema/Karcher, the great possesses reward indeed. Cleary too, there is much celebration. Woo, great joy. Leg, what is said of line 6 is good, but is only a truism. The whole course has been shown. If every step has been right and appropriate, the issue will be very good. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the work is ended and the past course is reviewed. If it has been appropriate and thorough, good fortune is assured. Wing. Take a long look at what your conduct in the situation has achieved thus far. If you are on the right path, you will know by the good it has produced. It is time for a re-evaluation of your goals. By examining the past, you may now get a glimpse of the future. Editor. There is an affinity here with the message in the image of the superior man, discriminating between high and low, and essentially putting his house in order. If this is the only changing line, the hexagram becomes number 58, joy, which intimates that one has successfully passed a test, in which case the line is an injunction to review the situation and see what we did right. A quote from Genesis 1:31. So that is what happened. We only had one changing line. It was the sixth line, and it did give us a supporting hexagram of joy. So based on what James Dekorne is saying, it intimates that one has successfully passed a test, in which case the line is an injunction to review the situation and see what we did right. Genesis 1:31, God saw all that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So like a new creation. That's what it feels like. James Dekorne breaks changing line 6 down into one succinct definition A. The work is a dynamic process which requires continuous evaluation and adjustment. Review the work, then review your options. Next, I will get a randomly card drawn verse of the Tao Te Ching while summing up the reading. Our primary hexagram 10 treading shows treading on the tail of a tiger. I already got 2 cards, perfect. Which is dangerous, clearly, but also if you're able to successfully tread on the tiger's tail, then in the killing of the tiger, you'll be able to gain the power of the tiger. So there's a lot of potential, and apparently the only inauspicious changing lines are that of 5 and 2, I think it said. We got changing line 6, which was possibly the most auspicious because it shows that success was achieved, and you're just looking back on the course that you tread and analyzing it in order to succeed again in the next undertaking. Because this isn't complete integration or the hexagram 63 completion, where all of the lines support each other in that there's a yin and yang that correlate between the first and fourth lines, second and fifth, and the third and sixth. So that's a solid, broken, solid, broken, solid, broken, all the way up, I believe, is what the 63rd hexagram shows. So there's still work to be done, clearly, but obviously a test has been passed. What James Dekorne said about hexagram 10 treading is that it by itself, without changing lines, would suggest that you're being tested. With our supporting hexagram 58 joy, well, first with our primary hexagram 10 treading, it has heaven above a lake, Qian heaven above dewy lake or marsh, and it's strength over naivete or joyousness, and it's because strength with kind of like the Fool of the Tarot card, with it, the strength without and the Fool of the Tarot within, you know, this paterfamilias or Yahweh Sabaoth or Zeus kind of idea of the top line of the divine masculine. I don't know what you would call it. I guess like the Hakma or Bina in the Kabbalah. I can't remember which one is which one is supposed to be the, you know, the, what do they call that? The very critical and strict father figure. Isn't going to judge the actions of the fool because of the innocence of the fool, in essence. Then we get over to our supporting hexagram 58, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. And we have Dewey, Laker, Marsh above Dewey, Laker, Marsh. So just joy within and joy without. James Dekorne shows that only 2 of the lines are auspicious, and oftentimes when it is received, this hexagram shows somebody just gaining pleasure in something that one shouldn't gain pleasure in, is his perspective on it. I do want to read from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, though, because it's a little bit more on the alchemical side of things, at least in the commentary section. This hexagram represents joy in practicing the Tao. It follows on the preceding hexagram, travel. Travel involves applying understanding with stability so that understanding is not misused. Having one's will on the Tao so that no external things can move it. Having one's will on the Tao is finding joy in the Tao. When one delights in the Tao, then one can practice the Tao. This is why joy is developmental. People who practice the Tao really correctly do not delight in objects of the senses, in wealth and gain. They delight in benevolence, justice, and the qualities of the Tao. So naturally they have real joy and do not strive for artificial joy. Thus every step proceeds from the work they apply to the essence and life of body and mind. Joyful in the beginning, they can naturally complete the end. So joy always develops, and the development is always beneficial. So based on I-ming's take on it, it's a little bit more positive, I would say, in saying that your steps are treading correctly. And that is necessary for our primary hexagram treading on the tiger's tail. Tagel's tiger, what? And the commentary section for treading in I-ming's Taoist I Ching was also interesting. In the body of the hexagram, lake is the mundane, representing arbitrary feelings. Heaven is the celestial, representing true sense. When the mundane treads under the celestial and the celestial treads on top of the mundane, then arbitrary feelings do not arise and true sense is always present. True sense is unemotional sense. Using unemotional sense to control feelings is like a cat catching a mouse, like boiling water being poured on snow. In a short time, calamity turns to fortune. The will of the people is settled, and there is nothing to thwart the Tao. Then one gradually puts into practice the pure, unadulterated vitality of firm strength in proper balance. But settling the will of the people is all a matter of being able to distinguish the higher and the lower. The stability attained will be in proportion to the degree in which this distinction is successfully made. If there is any lack of clarity in this distinction, there will be that much instability. Therefore, the sage's science of fulfillment of nature and comprehension of life requires thorough investigation of principle as the first step. Our changing line 6, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself, shows somebody looking back, like I said, over their path that they had tread successfully. They accomplished treading the tiger's tail, gaining the power of the tiger in a dangerous circumstance, and they're evaluating it in order to move forward, continually furthering the work. I will read our changing line in Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. Observing the footsteps, blessings from the ancestors. They come full circle, good fortune from the source. Looking back over the tiger's path through your life, or perhaps it is your own path, is like a form of divination. Reading the footprints left by visiting animals. By looking at this track record, you open up to a larger communication where you can perceive the shape and meaning of what has gone before. When you can see the footprints coming full circle, a completed pattern, and also the image of an endless cycle of communication, then their presence becomes a blessing. Makes me want to turn to joy, because that was interesting when it talked about people practicing the Tao together. It's basically exchanging and teaching, and one person is only so good at practicing the Tao themselves. Opening brings people together and begins a lively creative process of sharing and exchange. It liberates human energies, motivates people to overcome hardship, and encourages perseverance. And in the image section, two joined lakes open to one another, flow together freely, and enrich one another. The same is true of friends who join together to discuss and share their understanding. The exchange of ideas and pooling of insights makes everyone richer. In the sequence section, it says, you subtly penetrate things and know them from the inside. Then you bring things out and express them with joy, taking delight in the freedom to interact and connect. It talked about how one person is only able to understand things so much, yet with multiple people practicing the Tao together, they can study and learn and sharpen each other and help each other understand more fully and continue on the path more successfully. So that's super positive stuff, if you ask me. Trying to break it down maybe a little bit more succinctly. First, I do want to look at James Dekorne, because there were some really good quotes in there that I don't want to miss that might help. Where are we? We're on treading, huh? Cautious advance often images a test situation, or it can be a warning that you are walking on the edge of a precipice. The image of the Fool in the tarot deck has similar associations. Without changing lines, this hexagram implies a need for extreme caution, or that your actions are tempting fate. A quote from J. Blofeld, The Tantric Mysticism of Tibet. The passions, instead of having to be painfully exterminated, are yoked like snarling tigers to the adept's carriage. The dangers of such a course are obvious. As one of my Lama teachers put it, while you were traveling in that cart, a tumble would have done you little harm. Now I have given you an airplane. Don't crash in flames. Thankfully, in our situation, with our changing line 6, it says the work is a dynamic process which requires continuous evaluation and adjustment. Review the work, then review your options. And it says that the work is ended and the past course is reviewed. If it has been appropriate and thorough, good fortune is assured. And Wing, in Notes and Paraphrases, take a long look at your conduct in the situation. What your conduct in the situation has achieved thus far. If you are on the right path, you will know by the good it has produced. It is time for a re-evaluation of your goals. By examining the past, you may now get a glimpse of the future. Editor, there is an affinity here with the message in the image of the superior man discriminating between high and low, and essentially putting his house in order. If this is the only changing line, the hexagram becomes number 58, joy, which intimates that one has successfully passed a test, in which case the line is an injunction to review the situation and see what we did right. Which, again, I said that is what happened. We got changing line 6 was the only changing line, and we received joy. So what it intimates is that one has successfully passed a test. And a quote from Genesis 1:31, God saw all that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And like I said before, when we were reading that idea makes me think of like a new creation, because that's what in the Bible God said about everything that he made after the 6 days of creation. Well, he said it after every day, but essentially it's the completion of a cycle that A cycle's been ended and completed successfully in a dangerous circumstance through the treading of a tiger's tail, and for some reason there was successful steps being taken even in joy in that hexagram. So really breaking it down, we have successfully passed a test in a dangerous situation where there was a lot of potential to be gained, a lot of power to be gained in it, or advancement, learning, furthering of the work, and this work of individuation, an internal process that also happens from within but then goes without as well. That was something that was in there as well that made me think. And that was in James Dekorne. Hold on, let me get that out. And with joy, there's joy within and joy without. It could be seen as usurpation, or someone just having joy in things they shouldn't have joy in. But I-ming is a little bit more positive about the whole thing and talks about joy in practicing the Tao. As water provides moisture for myriad beings, joy develops myriad beings, joyful within and without, reaching the outer from within, communicating with the inner from without. Inside and outside are conjoined, without separation between them, therefore it is called joy. I like this one. This is the one that made me think of a spell, because that's what this would be helpful to have in effect, especially across the board in the whole world. The pleasure which leads the people to endure toil and risk death is the effect of the instructive example of their ruler. Fu Fan has seen, paraphrases this portion of the text as, when the sage with this precedes them, he can make them endure toil without any wish to decline it, and go with him into difficulty and danger without their having any fear. This hexagram speaks on the one hand of that on which true joy depends, and on the other of joy as desire, which leads to conflict. The essence of true joy is inner stability. Being firmly devoted to our path, we do not waver. When we think of the soft and comfortable path, on the other hand, self-conflict begins. Therefore, getting this hexagram indicates that we may be wavering or irresolute. Confucius/Leg Joy in commentary section has the meaning of pleased satisfaction. We have the dynamic lines in the center and the magnetic lines on the outer edge of the two trigrams, indicating that in pleasure, what is most advantageous is the maintenance of firm correctness. Through this, there will be found an accordance with the will of heaven and a correspondence with the feelings of men. When such pleasure goes before the people and leads them on, they forget their toils. When it animates them in encountering difficulties, they forget the risk of death. How great is the power of this pleased satisfaction, stimulating in such a way the people. Yeah, anyway. I don't know if anything else should be said about this. Dangerous situation, treading a tiger's tail. There's a lot of potential power and furtherance of the work to be had if that is a successful undertaking, which receiving changing line 6 shows that it is. We're looking back on the path at this stage of the cycle that just completed, and seeing what we did right and how well it went and what could be learned through the steps that we took in order to do well again in the next cycle. Also, this falls on a full moon, so I think it's a full moon in Scorpio. Is that accurate? Not sure, but that astrologically makes sense of completing a cycle. Not only that, I feel like me personally, am completing a very long cycle. With joy, I would think that the step next would be to have the inner practice that we do be something that we can bring out and do together with friends. That practicing the Tao can be something that through mutual exchange and interaction, the work can be furthered not only within us, but also in the outer world, where hopefully the ideal society can possibly come about, like in Plato's Republic, which was a thing that was quoted in one of these hexagrams as well, I think in James Dekorne's section. So yeah, that would be good. Now looking back over a path, what we did in that cycle, how can we tune it up a little bit and proceed further in the next cycle, in the next danger scenarios that we come across, in a successful way that makes our joy complete and is not a joy that is based on something that shouldn't be celebrated, but joy in practicing of the Tao and according with the times, and furthering the work and building people up and stabilizing the situations, and bringing peace and accord, and issuing in a new era of brotherly love, sisterly love, familial love, all of the loves, and integration and equal exchange, all of those kinds of things. So that is my highest hope, or one of them. 33 in the Tao Te Ching we will read, and then next 31. To close things off, my copy is by Jia Fufang and Jane English. "31. Good weapons are instruments of fear. All creatures hate them. Therefore, followers of Tao never use them. The wise man prefers the left. The man of war prefers the right. Weapons are instruments of fear. They are not a wise man's tools. He uses them only when he has no choice. Peace and quiet are dear to his heart, and victory no cause for rejoicing. If you rejoice in victory, then you delight in killing. If you delight in killing, you cannot fulfill yourself. On happy occasions, precedence is given to the left. On sad occasions, to the right. In the army, the general stands on the left, the commander-in-chief on the right. This means that war is conducted like a funeral. When many people are being killed, they should be mourned in heartfelt sorrow. That is why a victory must be observed like a funeral." Forgot to show the page. 31. This is what we just read. And 33. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing the self is enlightenment. Mastering others requires force. Mastering the self needs strength. He who knows he has enough is rich. Perseverance is a sign of willpower. He who stays where he is endures. To die but not to perish is to be eternally present. Where are you going?